What's up? What's happening? Welcome here to Lacrosse Now. I'm Travis Eldridge, back again this week, and we've got real lacrosse to talk about, things that happened in the NLL this past weekend. So we've got our NLL insider, Jake Elliott, joining us on this show. We go into all the different surprises that happened in week one. It was a pretty crazy week one, and not even every team in the NLL played yet. So a lot to dive into with Jake Elliott on the NLL side of things. We have got some lacrosse outside of the NLL coming up this coming weekend down in Florida. Team USA on the men's side, their final tryout process for this 2023 team that'll be representing the country in the World Championships coming up in San Diego next summer. We've got Grant Ament, who will be part of that tryout group that's going down to Florida this weekend. Grant Ament joining us to talk about that, his PLL season, and a bunch more. And we've got fresh lacrosse coming up on now Lacrosse TV coming up later this month. The brand new Professional Box Lacrosse Association, the PBLA, launching later on here in December. We've got the commissioner, Steve Donner, joining me to talk about his vision for this league, what his vision is, and why it was now is a good time to introduce this PBLA. So 3 terrific guests coming up this week on the show, but we'll start with Grant Ament getting ready for Team USA tryouts, coming off a tough season in the PLL where he dealt with injuries that kept him out for part of the season. So let's catch up with Grant and talk about getting ready for Team USA tryouts. So Grant Ament from the Archers joins us now. Grant, you got a lot going on. You get ready for another opportunity with Team USA this weekend as well. How you feeling? Like, where's your game at? Where's your health at? Where are we at?
Good. I'm feeling good. I'm feeling fast again, and feeling strong, and have been definitely working back to getting healthy, and finally feel like myself out there again on the field, and felt that way at the last round of tryouts. So the game's a lot more fun when I can use my legs.
Yeah, that's for sure. As anybody who's gone through any injury, it's like there's such a great appreciation for just feeling good being out there once you're back healthy, right?
Exactly. So yeah, everything's good. Excited for another opportunity to showcase myself this weekend, and hopefully all things will go well.
So let's start there, because it's coming up this weekend. What's been your experience throughout this process? Because it's been a lengthy process, different weekends. Like, how have you gone after, like, trying to be part of this World Championship team next summer?
Yeah, I think for me, it's, obviously being a little bit of a younger guy, trying to lean on some of the vets. Luckily, my teammate and captain of the Archers, Tom Schreiber's a veteran on the team, along with Marcus Holman. So those are our 2 captains on the Archers. And so kind of, using them as soundboards and kind of to understand the process as it goes along. And then obviously Rob Pennell as well, who's a good friend, and has been on now 2 U.S. teams. So has Marcus. But kind of just trying to use them and use them as much as I can to understand the process, understand what I need to do to showcase myself. But I haven't really been in a tryout space in a very long time, and it's not something that I missed necessarily, but it's a great challenge. And more importantly, I mean, you're on the field with 50 of the best guys in the world and 50 of the best guys in the States. And I wish at times it wasn't a tryout, because it is such a high level of lacrosse, and it's so much fun to play in.
I mean, you hit on it. Like, those are like the tryout experiences you go through when you're in middle school or high school trying to make like an elite team or something like that. It's so unique, I feel like, at this point in everybody's career, because you're right. Like, you get the best players in the country together, and it's like, all right, here we go. We gotta find 23. Like, what is that experience like, and how do you kind of like mentally prepare for what it's going to be like when you get there?
Yeah, I mean, luckily Coach D and the staff make it it's very cut and dry. It's like, these are the expectations. Go out and play how you would play. And they encourage us to play how we would play within the system that they install, at least offensively. And then, obviously learning the international game and learning a little bit of those nuances. That's kind of what has been expected of us. So they've made it pretty easy for us to feel comfortable in the system. And for me, mentally preparing for it, Obviously you could think of a lot of what ifs and compare yourself and do all those things. You really can only focus on yourself at the end of the day in these tryouts and how well you can do. And kind of going back to the stuff that Coach Tambroni taught me, and hustling on ride backs and running out every end line and doing all the little plays off the ground. And, those are the things at the end of the day that get you on the world team. And, it's fun going back to kind of your roots in that regard.
Whether you're on that world team or not, like, I feel like these tryout processes, like you get in there, you put USA across your chest, and it's special. Like, what's that moment like when you're wearing red, white, and blue, and even if it's just a scrimmage, you're representing the country?
Yeah, I have probably still in my parents' house. I have like a USA poster from the 2010 team. So it's like, I forget who was. I mean, Paul was on the team.
Yeah.
And they scrimmaged this like Philly team. But anyways, I have this poster, and it is cool to kind of have that full circle moment. For me, I personally, I'll smile and I'll know that I represent the country when we're facing the team in red and white. So, that's what I look forward to. And, it's obviously a huge honor to even be considered in a part of the process, but competitively, I'll smile and I'll wear it with pride when I make the team.
Well, we wish you the best of luck this weekend down in Florida as you guys continue that process to try to make that team for next summer's World Championships. Let's talk a little PLL. How would you sum up your season with the Archers?
Personally, not great. I'll be the first one to tell you it was a frustrating personal year for me. Just injuries after injuries and not feeling myself out there, and trying to contribute as much as I can and put the team in the best position to win. As a team, I think I would say probably the same. And I think when you ask the leaders of the team, I think they would all agree with that. I thought as always, like, we have the talent, we have some guys that can certainly take over games and can certainly, hang with anybody in the world. But at the end of the day, we need to win in September. So I think all of us have a very mature mindset on that and understand that. And I think starting with the championship series and kind of getting back together a little bit, we'll start kind of the rebuild back to hopefully getting back to the semifinals. And then this time, hopefully I can actually play in Philadelphia on championship weekend.
I'm sure you hate to hear it from people like me and everybody who talks about these teams, because, like, I look at the roster, and you guys have to look at it too. It's like yourself and Marcus and Will and Tom and Connor. Like, the list goes on of your offense. And look, every PLL team is super talented, but you look at that list, it's like, man, we feel like we've got all the pieces we need to be great. So what is it that, like, hasn't clicked yet with that whole group for like a whole season?
I think it's a few things. I think one, we've been knocked out by a team that figures out how to get hot at the right time. At the end of the day, they do, and that they're a team that we certainly respect the heck out of, because of their ability to. A lot of those guys go straight from a season into another season and still be able to perform and get to a championship weekend. It's impressive. And so obviously there's that side of things. And for us, I think, consistency in the lineup obviously helps. And I thought we did a great job of having that this year. I actually felt confident going into the semifinal. I thought we had a great game plan, and I thought we took a lot of the right steps in comparison to last year. I thought we scouted better. I thought we prepared better. And I thought we had honest and candid conversations with one another. And at the end of the day, that's just, unfortunately, you look at that game and you look top to bottom. I probably should have canned 2 or 3 more. Tom will probably tell you he should have canned a few. Marcus will tell you he should have canned a few. Will tell you we all had our opportunities. And at the end of the day, collectively, we didn't play to our best. And then combine that with, 4 highlight reel goals that are juice goals down on the other end. It was a recipe for disaster. But I wouldn't say I'm necessarily discouraged by the group that we have, and the mentality that we all have going into it. I think it was just kind of one of those days. It's just like it kind of the opposite of a few of the games that we had in the earlier parts of the season, where we're playing teams where it just wasn't going right for them, and that's just sport. But I think we're all very ready to kind of put that in the past and just get out there and compete again, and kind of figure this thing out as we go.
Yeah, it's the great and terrible thing about sports. Like, you just never know on any given day what's going to happen. You mentioned the championship series. What's your Sixes experience been like, and what are you expecting?
So I don't have any Sixes experience, but I've played enough small-sided games and stuff in my day. We used to play this game called Sweep It in State College, and it was the same thing, kind of very similar, up and down, 5-on-5, just going at it. And so I think it's a phenomenal thing for us to be able to showcase the possibility of having it in the Olympics. And I see that and the value of that, because the guys that are going to be playing in this are obviously all top tier players. And I think if you asked all of us if that's what it was going to do to take it to the Olympics, we would all say yes. And so, I think it's going to be fun. I'm excited. They've incentivized us, well, with cash prizes and obviously the Olympic side of things. And for the guys that don't play NLL, I look at it's an opportunity for me to compete a little bit, which I don't really get for 8 months out of the year. So it's fun to be able to strap it up and kind of get the competitive juices out.
You mentioned that, and that's always the biggest transition for anybody who goes from playing in college, and then you have that first year where you go college into pro, and it's great. It's smooth. But like, once that college season stops, like, you don't have fall ball, you don't have a spring season, and it's like, what do I do with all this time? How do I stay competitive? What have you learned about what you need in order to make sure you're ready for the beginning of a PLL season?
Yeah, it's a great question. It's something that, looking towards the future of the league, I hope that there is consistency across the league of what everybody kind of looks like in terms of their training. For me, I work combination on field and in the weight room with my trainer, and have gotten to a point where I have a good system, and I wear GPS tracking stuff, and really to just try to get as much data as I can to start to regulate training. When you look at sports across the industry, across like the sporting industry professionally, all of them use scientific data and all of different touch points. And there's a system for every sport. Lacrosse really doesn't have that yet. And for us, it's way too hard to have a college type diet, because we also don't really need it as much. A lot of the stuff, as we get to elite athletes, you can tailor your lifts a little bit more and tailor your training a little bit more. But it's something that I'm still candidly figuring out. And it's something that I think I'll get better at every year. But making sure, I get enough volume in my conditioning, making sure I'm getting enough, sprint reps and doing all of those things. And then as I get towards the season, calling Chris Sabia and go out and do one-on-ones and start to get a little bit more live reps. But I think that's the biggest difference between pro and college, is there's just not as many live reps, and you can create those. But as you get older, it's harder to do that many live reps. So, I think it's been a learning curve. There's been a learning curve throughout the past 3 years, but every year I seem to be able to pick up on a few extra things that I can dial into my training.
Speaking of college, what do you think of Penn State in 2023? What's your feel for them?
I love my Nittany Lions. They will have more than 3 wins.
Mark it down.
But I know that the team knows that, and that they're certainly motivated as a group. I think they'll have some missing pieces back from last year. Obviously getting TJ Malone healthy and Jack Trainer healthy. I mean, those two guys are their two most dynamic players, and they didn't have them last year. I think defensively, you'll see some younger guys getting some tick, and there's some good guys down there. Shout out my boy Will Costin, who's a Haverford boy. So he'll be starting down low, hopefully for the Nits. But no, I think that they're in a great place in terms of where they are culturally. I think they're really hungry. And I think, if we're talking about guys to look out for, I would bet my money that TJ Malone is going to have a breakout year, and there's and Jack Trainer as well, and that those two, I truly believe those two should be on the All-American list by the end of the year. So, they're guys that work their tails off, but also just love the game and love Penn State lacrosse.
I think we got to go right to the source. Get our news and notes for Penn State.
Not biased at all.
No, not biased at all. Hey, you know what? They got to get back to the home of the best NFL team in the league. It's back in Philadelphia for the Final Four this year, so they got to try to get back there. Damn right.
It's about 15 minutes from my apartment, so I will. Unfortunately, I'll be at training camp during that, but I'm sure I'll have friends staying at my apartment while they're in the Final Four. Hopefully.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, Grant, safe travels this weekend. Good luck with Team USA, and can't wait to see you guys at the championship series. All right. Thanks for the time.
Great. Thanks, Travis. Have a good one, man.
Best of luck to Grant as he heads down to Florida. Warmer temperatures than up here in the Northeast this weekend as they head down to Team USA tryouts in Florida. Also taking place around the same time as the IMLCA convention down there, all the college coaches. So a lot of lacrosse world, at least on the men's side, between college and the international game, headed down to Florida this weekend. Safe travels and good luck to everybody down there. Inside in the box game, the NLL making a big announcement here on Tuesday, announcing earlier today the first ever NLL regular season game that will take place outside. And there's a tie to these 2023 World Championships that will be happening in San Diego, because the NLL outdoor game that's going to be taking place March 4th will be taking place at Snapdragon Stadium in San Diego, which is the same location that will host some games during that 2023 World Championship, including the gold medal game for the World Lacrosse Men's World Championships coming up this summer. So it'll be a sneak peek for the lacrosse world as to what Snapdragon Stadium could look like for those World Championships. We'll be hosting an NLL game between San Diego, the Seals, and the Las Vegas Desert Dogs. March 4th, Snapdragon Stadium. It'll be a 1:30 p.m. Pacific time. That'll be 4:30 back here on the East Coast. Should be an awesome facility for lacrosse. It'll be really cool to see. I mean, we've seen it for the NHL and how they bring the arena essentially to these outdoor venues. It's going to be really cool to see how they do it. The capacity for the event will be right around 10,000. They're shrinking the capacity to make sure it's up close and personal for the fans. So if you're in San Diego or you're in California, you're close, try to find a way to go, because it should be a really cool event. Seals, Desert Dogs, March 4th, first ever NLL regular season game outdoors. So that happened after we talked with Jake Elliott, our NLL insider. So we didn't get a chance to talk about this cool new event for the NLL with Jake, but we had plenty to talk about recapping week 1 in the NLL. Let's catch up with our NLL insider and friend of the show, Jake Elliott.
This segment of Lacrosse Now is brought to you by Watch Dingo.
So not to be confused with the Eagles kicker, Jake Elliott, the NLL insider, joins us now to talk about week 1 in the NLL. Jake, always good to hang out with you. Thanks for some time, man.
My pleasure. Every now and then the Twitter feed, I'll get some hate mail or what have you if I miss a big kick in an important moment. But I'm way too big to be a kicker, I think. So anyways, Jake Elliott, go Eagles, 5 birds. Well, that I got way too many people on my timeline that are Eagles fans as well. So it gets a little confusing. Anyways, good to be with you, Travis, here on Lacrosse TV, man. Big rebrand. This is exciting stuff. My first appearance on Lacrosse TV.
Yeah, you're one of our first guests since we changed everything last week. So let's get into this. We were just talking about week 1 in the NLL. Surprises kind of all over the map. What was your biggest surprise?
Biggest surprise, I think, has to be the Albany Firewolves going into Buffalo and taking one from the Bandits, man. Tell you what, the picks were not too friendly to me on the old podcast. You know, we got the whole who you got thing going. And my top 2 confidence picks here in Albany and Georgia. So I'm way down the list in all the people in the standings after 1 week of action here. So, but yeah, Albany, I think grinding out a win over Buffalo on the road to kick off their year has to be the biggest surprise so far.
Yeah, and like just to dive deeper into that game, I mean, Doug Jamison's great, 45 saves. And I mean, we had Ethan Walker on the show last week, and he's talking about, you know, he's going to Albany. He's like, we're just trying to figure things out continuity-wise. Like, our offense is kind of inexperienced. It almost felt like, talking to him, that this was like full rebuilding mode. Well, I mean, I guess not. I mean, you go ahead and beat maybe the best team in the league last year in week 1. Like, there could be some optimism here.
Yeah, Colorado might have something to say about being the best team in the league last year. But yeah. I hear what you're saying, and you know what? I think maybe Albany kind of thought this year might have been a bit of a write-off as well, with all the moves that they made offensively, and they stocked up on draft picks, and a lot of guys are going to be inserted into their lineup over the next year and probably 2 years that are going to be real impact guys in their lineup. So they did a quick turnover, but I don't know if they expected to come into this year and be super competitive. And you mentioned Ethan Walker, and the guy that I have on the podcast this week, I've never had a conversation with him, Tanner Thompson, who had a fantastic game for the Firewolves, is going to join me this week. And I'm really looking forward to this conversation. A guy that, you know, just kind of muddled in the league for a couple of years, didn't really get a sniff with Saskatchewan, then was moved on to New England, didn't do a whole lot there. Second year in Albany now, and he seems to be a real focal point of the offense, and put up 7 points in that game, 7 out of the 11 goals he was in on. And I think the same thing with Ethan Walker. Like, you know what this kid did at DU. He's a prolific shooter and a Peterborough kid. You know the lineage, the players that come out of there, and just needed an opportunity, and he's going to get one here in Albany. I think this is going to be a reoccurring theme, Travis, of guys that have maybe been down the depth chart on other teams, now getting an opportunity in a new location to show what they can do. And sometimes that's all you need. It's just an opportunity. And I think Walker and Tanner Thompson are 2 prime examples of that.
Yeah, I think he hit the nail on the head with that, because one of the other guys that really impressed here in week 1 is Connor Fields, now with Rochester. I mean, 4 goals, 7 assists for the Nighthawks. Like, I mean, we saw him in college, and like he's Tewaaraton finalist. He's a superstar. I don't know if he in the pro game has ever been looked at like a #1 guy, whether it's indoor or outdoors. And it feels like maybe this could be his chance. Like, could this be like where we're looking at Connor Fields as like the guy in Rochester?
Oh, I have to think so, Travis. And you know, let's not forget that he started his career in San Diego. He wasn't going to be a #1 guy there, and still pretty new to the whole box game. I know he had a little experience when he was younger, but a lot of stars around that Seals team. And then he goes on to Buffalo, and, you know, you're talking Byrne and Dane, and you know the deal there. So he wasn't going to be the #1 guy there. And listen, from all accounts, Connor Fields was none too happy about being left unprotected by Buffalo. And Steve Dietrich in a real tough position there. Couldn't protect everybody, and it was Connor Fields that he left unprotected, and he knew he was going to be the guy that got selected. He goes just down the road, right, to Rochester, but a different situation. You're talking a championship caliber roster in Buffalo, and coming oh so close to the title over the last couple of years, to go into a team like Rochester that I think had 4 wins last year, and he wasn't happy about it. And he came out and he played like it in week 1, and I think this is going to be what we're going to see from the Nighthawks, and Connor Fields is a real motivated lacrosse player saying, hey, like, you made a mistake, Buffalo, and now I'm going to make you pay. And man, like, if they can get that kind of production out of Fieldsy for the entire year, look out for the Nighthawks.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the guy we've seen at times in his career, and he's been the number one guy places, and he's shown it over and over again. He's got the stuff to be that. It'll be fun to watch him throughout this year. Let's stay in the East with Halifax. Cody Jamieson is an ageless wonder. Like, this guy, between the injuries and he still goes out there and is still contributing at a high level. And that Halifax team, they looked impressive here in week 1.
Yeah, they were clicking on all cylinders, weren't they? And I'm not so sure. It was kind of a weird opening week for a number of teams. Like, Colorado fell flat on their face, as did Vancouver. We might talk about those guys here momentarily. And Philadelphia, who, it's hard to go into it and watch a game like that and then say to yourself, man, is Halifax really that good? Or is Philadelphia really that bad? Or is it somewhere a combination of in between? And I think that might be the case. Like, I don't think Philly performed anywhere near as well as they can. And I think Halifax was just dialed right out of the get-go in that game. But to bring it back to Jammer, man, I don't think he played last year at 100% health all season long. And I think an off season for him really helped him. I think he's, there are a lot of miles and a lot of hits and everything else on that body, but he's still the heartbeat of that team. He's the captain of that team. He's the inspirational leader of that team. And now he's in a position where he doesn't have to put up 100 points in a season to be effective. He's just got to chip in and be a piece of the puzzle. And I think he's adapted well into that role and still productive, no question about it. And I don't know how much longer he's going to go, but if he plays like that, I mean, he's still got some gas in the tank, that's for sure.
I let you hit the nail on the head in terms of like the mileage for him. Like, him playing as long as he has in the way in which he plays the box game is different than some other guys. He's not a finesse dude. Like, he is lowering the shoulder. This is not a finesse game that Cody Jamieson's playing. So the miles are a little different for him than for some other guys.
Absolutely. And let's not forget that we're not just talking National Lacrosse League here, right? We're talking summer ball. We're talking field lacrosse. We're talking world championships. This guy, all he does is play lacrosse. And I don't know if you've seen the clip. It was from a few years ago now, Travis, but there's a clip out of there where Cody Jamieson is coming down on goal. And I believe it is poor Chet Konechny that is in the goal because they had pulled the goaltender. And I think it was the Philadelphia Wings at the time. And Cody comes down. He's got an empty net. He's inside the dotted circle, man. And there was no finesse. Like, he wound up and pasted one into the top corner with a player standing in between the pipes playing goal. And people were like, holy cow. And he's like, hey, I shoot to score. So there is no finesse when it comes to Cody Jamieson. He's balls to the wall every time.
So you were talking about this Philadelphia-Halifax game of like where the teams are after week 1. And I think there's no stranger result when you look at it than the Saskatchewan and Colorado game. Because you mentioned Colorado, defending champs. They looked so good down the stretch last year, especially the defense with Dylan Ward. And Saskatchewan hangs 18 goals on them. They win 18-6. I mean, Saskatchewan led 6-0 in this game, and it was over almost before it started. We'll start with Saskatchewan. Where was the Saskatchewan team last year?
Well, Travis, I think they were there coming down the stretch at the end of the year. The problem for Saskatchewan last year was their start. They were just horrible out of the gates and dug themselves such a deep hole that they were unable to climb out of it. And when they made the coaching change, and I'm not pinning it all on Jeff McComb because I think that's nonsense, but when they made the coaching change, they went on a pretty good run. And if they had a little longer of a runway at the end of the season, I think they get into the playoffs, and then who knows what happens once you're in the dance. But I'm watching Alex Bouquet in goal here and going, where was this Alex Bouquet a year ago in Vancouver? Because he was phenomenal, getting off to a quick start. But I think the other thing we have to kind of keep in mind here, Travis, is that Colorado, coming off a championship run, they are severely dinged up. They're missing a ton of bodies in their lineup. And I think that showed in week 1. So, there's a prime example. Like, Colorado won a championship last year, and they get hammered in week 1. But is anybody going to panic in Denver or around the league saying Colorado is in danger of missing the playoffs or they're going to have a horrible year? I don't think so. I'm not, right? It's 1 week, and I think that's all it is. So great win for Saskatchewan. Fantastic. They get off to a good start and put up a bunch of goals, and they do it at home. For Colorado, I'm not too worried. I just think we're an undermanned lacrosse team. First week of the season, tough place to go play in Saskatchewan, and laid an egg.
Yeah, well, and I think you see the toll of what playing, NLL lacrosse into early June, and then a lot of these guys then played, whether it was summer box or field lacrosse pro, and all the international stuff throughout the summer, and then boom, you're right back into it. And I think sometimes early on in the year, you see that toll catch up to some of these guys. And I mean, we saw it with Buffalo, we see it with Colorado.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's just part of the deal, man. When you're playing that much lacrosse in a 12-month period, you got to pace yourself a little bit. You just can't, I think, just to spin it back to Halifax, I think Graham Hossack was a perfect example of that. Man Cup run, World Championships, sixes, summer, PLL, NLL, it just nonstop, right? And you just can't perform at your elite level when you're playing that much. And this sport is so taxing on your body. It's not like baseball where you're playing 160 games a year and you're eating sunflower seeds in the dugout for half the game. This is big boy stuff here, and you can't do it. So yeah, I think it's just going to be a slow burn. And if you ask anybody, yes, the wins mean just as much in the early season as they do at the end of the year. But everybody wants to be peaking at the right time and playing their best lacrosse when it matters most. And that's late March, early April.
So let's hit on the team that you know well in Vancouver. And, I mean, they went up to Toronto, and it was a tough one for them. What's your takeaway from what you saw from the Warriors, but also what you saw from Toronto, where Tom Schreiber was terrific in that one?
Yeah, Tom's terrific in every game he plays, isn't he?
That's a good point.
And listen, Challen Rogers getting moved up to offense on a full-time basis. He and Tom and Challen are going to be a problem.
Those are two really good lacrosse players, really good lacrosse players.
Yeah, I think you could see Challen Rogers win the MVP this year. That's how dominant I think he's going to be. And they've moved him up front on a full-time basis. But I still think there's going to be times when he's going to go back and play some short man and some transition and some ball team and some all of it. So maybe the most complete player in the game right now, Challen Rogers. But yeah, Tribes was unreal. Their defense was spectacular. There was hat tricks from defenders like DeSnoo and they just rolled. For Vancouver, I'll say this, Travis, they finally got their first exhibition game out of the way, right? They didn't play any exhibition. I think they're the only team that did not have an exhibition game, and I think it really showed. And Vancouver may not be a championship roster this year, but when you're playing your first game of the year, you're going across the continent, the country to play it. It's an earlier time zone. They had an 8 o'clock shoot around for a 5 o'clock start there in Hamilton after a long travel day, and no exhibition. That's a real tough spot to go and to go and play the team that I think is going to win the championship this year, Travis. That's a tough way to start your season. And a lot of it riding on goaltender Steve Fryer, who is now the number one guy there. And he was just overwhelmed by the Rock in their transition and their offense. And, they dug themselves a hole that they just couldn't get out of. By the first half, it was over, and they played him pretty straight up in the second half, but it was too little too late.
Speaking of the Rock, I mean, we had talked to Dan Dawson a couple of years ago, and it felt like, all right, any one of these years, it could be it. Is he ever going to retire?
I hope not, man.
This guy's unbelievable.
Don't. I absolutely love Dan Dawson. He is one of my favorite people to talk to, just, whether it's about lacrosse or life or whatever the case may be. And I love to watch the guy play. I think this is year 21 for Dan Dawson, which is just amazing. And listen, his brother in Rochester, he's at year 15 or something like that. And it's incredible what these guys have done in their career. And I don't know how much longer Dan Dawson can go, man. I think he really wants to deliver a championship to Toronto before it's all said and done. And I think this year they got the roster to do it.
So let's finish with this one, because we talked about a lot of impressive players. Who was your most impressive in week one?
Connor Fields has to be up there. I think Doug Jamieson has to be in the conversation. Mitch DeSnew has to be in the conversation there. Rylan Hartley, I thought, had a great game for the Nighthawks in gold. It's good to see Hartsey back tending the net. So there was a number of standout performances. I think those would be my top guys: DeSnew, Fields, Tanner Thompson, Rylan Hartley, and Doug Jamieson.
We just call that the Jake Elliott NLL Team of the Week. There you go.
Well, you know, like I didn't even mention Jeff Teat, Travis, who put up a casual dozen for the Riptide. Like, he almost willed that team back to victory by himself against the San Diego Seals, who are probably the odds-on favorite to come out of the West. So, man, like, it's crazy when you're thinking like this, that 12 points in a game is an average night for Jeff Teat. And I think we're going to see this. Like, I'm putting the mark at it right now, Travis. 10 is going to be the average for Jeff Teat per game this season. 10.
I mean, it's crazy, but like, with what he might have to do on that roster, I think at times for them to compete, like, he's got the freedom to do it, and he certainly has the skill. I mean, we've seen it now, like a year plus. He's there.
180 points in a season. It could happen this year. Mark my words. Mark it down, Travis. Callum, I mean, they got some players around Jeff Teat now, Riley O'Connor, Callum Crawford. They got some players that can help out. I mean, Larson Sundown, all he wants to do is get guys open. And whether he, gets a couple or some assists or whatever, this guy is an absolute bowling ball inside on that offense. And guys love playing with guys like that. So offense is not going to be an issue on Long Island this year. I guarantee you of that. And Jeff Teat, 180 points could happen.
We'll save this for later in the year and see how it turns out. Jeff Teat is special talent. All right, Jake, we appreciate the time. You can listen to Jake, Lacrosse Classified podcast. Got some terrific guests last week. I know
we got Brett Frood, commissioner of the National Lacrosse League, on this week, so it's definitely one you want to listen to.
All right, when's it come out?
Every Tuesday, noon Pacific, wherever you find your podcast, you'll find Lacrosse Classified.
All right, so check out Jake on the Lacrosse Classified podcast, and we appreciate the time and the insight, man. We'll catch up here later in the season.
Let's do this again soon, Travis. Lacrosse TV, I love it, man.
Good stuff. Thanks, Jake. Speaking of the indoor game, exciting news that was also announced today here on Tuesday by the PBLA and us here at Lacrosse TV. We will have a game of the week throughout this first inaugural PBLA, the Professional Box Lacrosse Association season. Set to start later this month here at the end of December. The game schedule hasn't exactly been released yet, but some exciting matchups. It's a league that promises to have some players like Marcus Holman, Stephen Kelly, former Syracuse player Bradley Voigt, Bill O'Brien, who's spent some time in the NLL, all expected to compete in this league for various teams across the league. Should be a lot of fun, and there's a vision here for the PBLA of an opportunity to allow some American players who may not have box experience to get real live reps and minutes in professional games, something that if you're on a practice squad in the NLL, you may not have an opportunity to do. So an opportunity to maybe learn the box game and get experience a little bit faster to maybe someday make that jump to the NLL or represent Team USA in the World Indoor Championship. So a great idea, and it's going to be fun to watch this league grow. Had a chance to catch up with the commissioner, Steve Donner, earlier this week, talking about what his vision for this PBLA is. So we're now joined by the commissioner of the new Indoor Pro Box Lacrosse Association, the PBLA, Steve Donner. Steve, thanks so much for taking some time during a busy time for you as you guys get ready to launch this league later this month.
Oh, Travis, thank you. It is an exciting time for us, the league, but like I say, it's a pleasure to be with you here today.
So pitch me the vision. Where did this come from, the idea to start this new indoor box league?
Well, I've been involved with lacrosse for decades, and the indoor game as well. And love the NLL. It's a great product, great players, and probably for over a decade, I think not just me, but a number of people were looking for ways to introduce more American players, to indoor lacrosse, box lacrosse. And I think the evolution of the NLL, for one reason or another, I think when the MILL first started, the player pool was almost 80% American. And over the last 25 years, it's sort of just evolved to almost 96% Canadian the other way. And at the same time, the growth of lacrosse in the U.S. has just been going through a tremendous, tremendous growth spurt in every direction, whether it's on the field or in the box. Organically, it's been growing leaps and bounds. And so the players themselves were the ones sort of saying, we need an outlet, for American players to play box lacrosse. I think the NLL recognizes that, for if they want to go to 30 franchises someday, they've got to find a solution for it too. So independently, John Livesey and myself, had this vision over the last 3 years. We were working on it through COVID, slowed down a little bit through COVID, and put together partnerships, with a few other people that shared our vision, and the league is being born. And really, what it is, Travis, is high-level box lacrosse, with a high emphasis on developing American players and American coaches.
Well, and I think you look at some of the rosters that you guys have put out there, and there are some names that are Americans that people will recognize, whether they're playing in the PLL or were great college players in the field. What's been the reception from the pool of players that you've pulled in about the opportunity to play pro indoor lacrosse?
Well, the reception has really blown us away. Any good league has to have a good talent pool, a good base to work from. We had a good vision of what we thought would be attractive to players, and I think both the markets we've picked and some of the rule changes that we put in the game, we really thought would be attractive to American players. But to be blown away by the talent that's entered the league through the draft, through free agency, and most recently the supplemental draft, I have to say our talent pool right now way exceeds our early expectations, and it's an exciting testament to, I think, what the players think about what the PBLA can be.
You mentioned the rules. How similar or different will this feel and look to fans that are fans of the NLL in the indoor game?
Well, I think it's going to look really familiar to the NLL fans. I think the subtle changes really are going to be transition. I think that one of the things we're working on, in the early days of the MILL, there was long bombs from goalies after a save, try to get 2-on-1, 3-on-1, up and down the floor. Now the NLL has become a little more platooned. An offensive, defensive sort of structure. The goalie gets the ball after a save, lets his defenseman get off the floor, gets his offense on the floor, and they work the ball around for a shot. So we're trying to bring some transition back into the game, on a shift by shift basis. So our players are going to have to learn how to play both ends of the floor.
So how do you do that in terms of the rules? What are you implementing?
Well, partly is where players can substitute. So right now in the NLL, the players can substitute out the back door. And so if you start out with a 2-on-1, a 3-on-1 break, 2 or 3 guys can pop off the back door as 2 guys hit the front door, and it snuffs out the transition. All of our substitutions, coming off the field are going to come up the near door, and so it's going to eliminate that 10 or 15 yard advantage on a substitution and put it back in the offense's hands.
You're based in Elmira. The southern tier of New York is a place I know well, and I know Syracuse. I know you spent a lot of time developing different minor league teams in Rochester. There's a lot of this league that's based in that area. What was the vision and idea behind that? I'm guessing it probably helps with travel and a lot of other logistical things.
Yeah, it was partial travel. It was partial familiarity with the game. It was partially, around cities that have had indoor lacrosse. So it's not foreign, but maybe a little far away to support game in, game out. I think the tradition of the college programs in the region with our player pool that we're going after, played a big role, and our familiarity. I'm very familiar with the region, and thought, what a better way to put it in markets with player pool, markets with traditional lacrosse, and build instant rivalries. We try to do the same thing, in our Carolina, Virginia region as well, around player pools of Division I talent, and close enough where lacrosse fans love to travel. So we're hoping to build instant rivalries on both divisions.
You obviously have a lot of experience with, I think, this level of professional sports, whether it's your time with the Amherst there in the AHL or your time in the National Lacrosse League when with the Nighthawks. How do you drive success with this level of professional sports where you're not at the top tier where it's the NFL or the NBA, but it's somewhere in the middle where you're trying to draw on local fans to feel a tie to a team that's in their hometown?
Well, I think it's a combination of things. It's, I think, one, supplying maybe a need that's not being supported right now in those markets. I think it's using familiar talent. Is not to knock, the Syracuse entry in the NLL years ago, but they came in with a lot of Canadian players, maybe a lot of unrecognizable names, and the players. And Syracuse is going to have a great team this year, by the way, and they're putting it together with players from that region. Former SU players that have played in Onondaga Reservation. And so it's going to be both a great product on the field, very affordable, and a market that's not being served overserved by professional sports with recognizable names.
How will you determine success here with this league, whether it's some of your goals here in year one and then looking forward?
Well, I think number one, our goals are growing the game of box lacrosse. So the fact that in our first year, we've virtually doubled the number of American cities that have pro box lacrosse in year one, I think is a huge, victory in itself. I think number two, putting a product on the field that the fans will embrace and enjoy. The game in any version is a great game. I think what we're trying to do with our version of the game is to have the most impactful, exciting, fun version of box lacrosse that there is out there today. And then number three, selling it to the fans. Having a less than 1 year window to launch 9 teams. We're going to have crowds that are going to vary in size. We know that, and but we also know that when people are exposed to the game, they love to come back. So we're gonna be patient with our model of building fans behind it. But I think we're excited to have great cities, great leases, great coaches, tremendous players, and now we got to build behind all of that.
And you mentioned the importance of giving Americans the opportunity to play. Is the vision that you hope that Americans can come into this league, learn this version of the sport, and continue to grow, whether it's continuing to be elite in your league or playing in the NLL and elsewhere?
Yes, I think players playing our league their game will improve no matter which direction they decide to go. We're going to take our growth year to year. It's proven that, indoor box skills are great for the outdoor game. It's well accepted in Division I programs now, Division II programs, and 3. I think, the frustration for American players in the NLL is it may take them 3 or 4 years to get enough minutes to really have an impact, for themselves, and for the league. And, 3 or 4 years is a long time in a player's career. Those players can come into our league, I think, be impactful right away. Their learning curve will be a lot quicker. And if, they become stars in our league and stay with it, or if they grow from our league and go on to, be a star in the PLL or play in the NLL, I think we'll be really excited for everyone that can grow from this experience.
All right, so we'll leave you with this because we're less than a month away from opening night in this league. What's the focus here in the last couple of weeks as we lead up to the first game in PBLA history?
Well, for the coaches, they've got some hard choices to make. Boy, there are going to be some tough cuts. And I think behind that is what can we do to make the fan experience on opening night with the biggest crowds and the most exciting, atmosphere for all of our opening night games. So, and I think number 3, just get the games on. So that's going to be our goal. But I think the product's going to take care of itself, and we're going to grow into the business, week to week as the season progresses here.
Well, Steve, we're really excited to see it. It should be a lot of fun to watch the beginning of this league coming up later this month here in December, the PBLA inaugural season. We appreciate the time. We'll talk here as soon as we launch this thing and get into the season.
Travis, it's going to be part of lacrosse history, and I'm excited we're doing it together with the Lacrosse Network, Lacrosse TV, and hopefully in a couple of weeks we can look at some highlights and talk about how fun the game is.
We cannot wait, Steve. It's going to be a lot of fun.
Thanks, Travis.
So as we said, PBLA Game of the Week coming to Lacrosse TV starting later this month. Make sure you keep an eye out on social media as we'll continue to promote when those games will begin and our exact game schedule for the PBLA Game of the Week all season long here in the PBLA's inaugural season. Well, as you may have noticed, if you follow us on social media, we have a new name here at LSN. Well, now it's Lacrosse TV. And for people who have been following and watching and listening to our content from the very beginning or even just in the last few years, this isn't for you. Nothing's changing. The content is going to stay the same. We hope to continue to bring you great interviews and stuff like you've been used to getting here on Lacrosse Now. Great games, including our relationship with the CAA continuing, high school, college, all that's staying the same. This is for some of the regular sports fans or people that may be introduced to us with some of the new distribution deals that we hope to be announcing here in the near future. Because what we hope is that by changing our name from LSN to Lacrosse TV, if somebody is scrolling through some of these new digital TV guides and they stumble upon lacrosse, well, maybe they didn't play lacrosse, but maybe they have a son or daughter who played or a niece or nephew who plays, and they see the word lacrosse and they go, oh, I've heard of that. Let me give it a try. And then they're introduced to our exciting content and hopefully then in turn introduced to the sport that we all love so much. So if you've been following us, we appreciate your continued support. And just know that the change in name doesn't really come with the change in content. We're still going to continue to bring you everything you've enjoyed since the beginning of us launching this network. But what we are going to continue to do is try to expand the reach of not only the network, but also of the sport. So we hope you enjoy the new logo, our new name, Lacrosse TV. It's taking me a little adjustment to get used to saying it, but all the content's going to stay the same, and we continue to appreciate your support and all your time viewing, listening, consuming our content. So that's all the time we have here for Lacrosse Now this week. We will be right back here. More great content coming your way next week, including a bunch of great interviews. Got a bunch of college coaches had a chance to catch up with over the last couple of weeks. We'll continue to bring those to you as we get ready for the 2023 season. But for now, it's all the time we got. We'll see you.